I need to share this with you. Something happened to me that night that I can't explain. Since then, I barely slept, and every time I see a black car, my stomach drops. Maybe you'll think I'm crazy, or maybe someone out there can help me make sense of this. It was an unusually quiet Tuesday night in Los Angeles. The city that never really sleeps felt eerily subdued, as if holding its breath. My shift had run late, and I was exhausted, longing to get home and collapse in a bed. The streets were deserted, the faint hum of distant traffic muffled by a heavy, damp chill that clung to the air. I called an Uber and waited under the dim glow of a flickering streetlight, my breath visible in the cold. When the headlights finally appeared through the mist, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The car rolled to a stop, and I slid into the back seat, greeted by the driver, a man who looked to be in his 50s with a graying beard and a calm, practiced smile. "Long night?" he asked as I settled in. The car smelled faintly of pine air freshener, though there was an undercurrent of something metallic, subtle, but distinct enough to make me pause. I ignored it, telling myself I was just overtired. At first, everything seemed fine. We exchanged polite small talk, his voice steady and unremarkable. But then, without warning, his tone shifted. He began sharing stories about previous passengers, strange stories that felt out of place. One time, he started, his voice tinged with something I couldn't quite place. "I dropped a woman off downtown. She seemed normal enough, thanked me, and walked in her building. But then, 2 weeks later, I got another request from her account. Same name, same profile picture, only this time. Well, let's just say the building she'd gone into had been condemned for years." I laughed nervously, hoping it was just an odd joke, but his face remained neutral, as if recounting a fact. My eyes drifted to the window, trying to distract myself from the unease creeping in. That's when I noticed something strange. The landmarks outside seemed familiar, too familiar. We just passed a gas station, and moments later, there was again. I frowned, leaning forward slightly. "Are we going in circles?" He chuckled softly, not looking back at me. "The city looks different at night, doesn't it?" His response was unsettlingly vague, his tone light, yet devoid of reassurance. I gripped my phone tightly, glancing at the Uber app to check the route. Everything seemed normal, but the sinking feeling in my gut told me otherwise. Something was wrong. My fingers hovered over the cancel button, but I hesitated, unsure of what would happen if I actually pressed it. As the car continued down the deserted streets, a cold realization set in. I wasn't just lost. I was trapped, and the worst part, I didn't know why. I checked my phone again, hoping to calm the growing unease that gnawed at me. The Uber app showed the route was perfectly normal, straight to my apartment, but reality didn't match the map. For the third time, we passed the same gas station, its neon sign flickering like a warning. My pulse quickened as I leaned forward. "Seriously? Are we lost?" The driver turned to me briefly, his expression unnervingly calm, almost amused. "Sometimes people don't know where they're going until they get there," he said, his voice smooth but hollow. A chill ran through me, and I gripped my phone tighter, resisting the urge to press the emergency button just yet. The car slowed down, and I looked out the window. We were no longer on familiar streets. Instead, we were on an empty, narrow road lined with dense trees that seemed to stretch endlessly into the night. My breath hitched as my phone buzzed in my hand. Relief washed over me momentarily. Maybe it was a friend or an update from the app. But when I looked at the screen, my blood ran cold. It wasn't a notification, just a single word in bold, glowing letters. "Get out." My heart pounded as I whipped my head up. "Did you just text me?" My voice cracked slightly, betraying the fear I was trying to suppress. The driver didn't flinch, his gaze locked on the road ahead. "No signal out here, right?" he murmured, almost as if he was talking to himself. Panic surged through me. I reached for the door handle, my fingers fumbling in desperation. It didn't budge. I yanked it again, harder this time, but it was locked tight. My palms grew sweaty, and I glanced at him, my voice rising. "Unlock the door." "Now?" He didn't respond. His silence was deafening, filling the car with an almost unbearable tension. My breathing became shallow, my mind racing through every possible escape. The metallic smell in the car seemed stronger now, and the faint hum of the engine felt like a countdown to something I couldn't understand. I scanned the road ahead, hoping for a sign, any sign, of another car, a house, or even a streetlight. But there was nothing but darkness. My reflection in the window looked distorted, almost foreign, as if the fear on my face belonged to someone else. "Where are we going?" I demanded, my voice shaking but louder now. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that wasn't meant to reassure but to unsettle. "You'll see." The weight of his words settled over me like a suffocating fog. I stared at my phone again, desperate for some lifeline, but the message had disappeared. The screen was blank, like it had never been there at all. The car rolled to a stop, and the silence that followed was suffocating. My heart hammered in my chest as I realized I was out of options. My thoughts were a chaotic mess, every instinct screaming at me to do something, anything, but I was frozen between fear and indecision. The car slowed, the headlights casting long, jagged shadows across the deserted street before coming to a stop beneath a flickering streetlight. The light buzzed faintly, the only sound breaking the suffocating silence. "We're here," he said casually, his tone eerily calm, as if we'd arrived at my requested destination. But this wasn't my apartment. This wasn't anywhere I recognized. I stared out the window, my stomach twisting in knots. The road was empty, bordered by dense, silent trees that seemed to press in closer the longer I looked at them. My mouth went dry as I turned back to him. What did he mean? "We're here?" I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "What is this place?" He didn't answer, just tilted his head slightly, as though waiting for me to figure it out. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something that sent a cold shiver down my spine. Panic clawed in my chest, but I knew I couldn't let him see it. My hand tightened around my phone, and I forced myself to act. Pressing it to my ear, I pretended to make a call. "Yeah, I see you. I'm here," I said, raising my voice to make it sound like someone was waiting for me just outside. His gaze sharpened, and for a moment I thought he was going to call my bluff. The air in the car felt thick and suffocating as he tilted his head again, studying me with an unnerving stillness. Then, without a word, he reached for the door locks and pressed a button. The quiet click of the doors unlocking felt deafening in the tense silence. I didn't wait. My hand shot to the door handle, and I shoved it open, clutching my bag as I bolted out into the cold night air. My legs felt like they were moving on autopilot, my pulse pounding in my ears as I sprinted toward the faint glow of a gas station in the distance. Every step felt like an eternity, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't dare look back until I reached the edge of the station's parking lot. When I finally turned, the street was empty. The car was gone. My chest heaved as I leaned against a lamppost, trying to process what had just happened. The gas station's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, offering a small, fragile sense of safety. But my mind was racing. Had I escaped? Or had he simply let me go? The question lingered, heavy and unanswered, as I stood there in the cold, wondering if I'd ever feel safe again. I eventually made it home that night, but nothing has felt normal since. Every detail replays in my mind on an endless loop, like a movie I can't turn off. I lie awake at night, dissecting every moment, every word he said, every eerie silence. Did he have some twisted plan? Was it a cruel game to mess with me? Or could it have been something far stranger, something I'll never truly understand? Even now, days later, I can't shake the tension. Every time I see a car resembling his, a black sedan with tinted windows, I freeze. My chest tightens, my palms sweat, and I find myself scanning the street, half expecting to see his calm, unreadable face staring back at me. I try to make sense of it. I open the Uber app, searching for his profile, hoping to find something that might explain the bizarre events of that night. But it was gone, completely wiped. No trip history, no driver details, nothing. It's like he never existed. And that text, "Get out," it haunts me. I've checked my phone 100 times, but there's no trace of it. No message history, no notification, just the chilling memory of those two words glowing on my screen. Who sent it? Was it some glitch, a warning, or something I'm better off not knowing? I've replayed the conversation in my head so many times, searching for a clue. His stories about other passengers, were they real? Were they meant to scare me? Or was he hinting at something deeper? That line he said, "Sometimes people don't know where they're going until they get there." What did that mean? I haven't been able to tell anyone about this. How you explain something like this without sounding paranoid or crazy? But I need answers. So, I'm sharing this here. If anyone has experienced anything remotely like this, or if you know what might have been going on, please tell me. All I know is I've sworn off rideshares completely. I can't bring myself to get into another car with a stranger. And honestly, I'm not sure I ever will. And this was one of our followers' stories. If you want your story to be told by us as well, leave it in the comments below this video. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, we prepared the next video especially for you. Click here to watch it.